Welcome, welcome, welcome to this edition of Sagionic 1027. We are so glad that you decided to join us for yet another broadcast. And we are right in the middle of doing a segment called a special for 2023 Valentines Love Stories. And with us today, we have Larry and Vonnie Wheelon. And we are so excited for everybody to be able to meet them and tell us, viewers, here's my microphone. Larry, how is it that you've decided to be stretched over the years? And Vonnie, how have you remained that happy little cheerleader over the years? And so we're really glad to be with you guys. And so the first question I'd like to ask is, what do you see Larry as being like if you were to have an auditorium filled with 300,000 men? What is the number one thing you would tell them is the most important thing? Husbands, grab a hold of this and it's going to make a world of a difference.
Listen. Listen to your wife. I'm sure your husband would agree.
So to listen, can you give us an example, like break it down even more? Because, does he have this strapping young man who's, been, I am the man, and that's been his mantra, I'm the man. And now some characters coming into the scene saying, listen to your wife, break that down a little more.
I think it's when you choose to listen, you're actually putting your wife first rather than yourself first. Simple.
1 second.
Simple little formula.
Hold on, I gotta move this up a little here so we can hear. And is that how you were raised, Larry? Did you see the example of your father, having a listening ear towards your mother? And what kind of a difference did that make? How did you see your parents demonstrate love as opposed to potentially some of your other, lads that you ran around with in their families? How did you see the difference in that?
Boy, I have to think back a long ways. Because that childhood was a long time ago. I think what I saw was each one ministering to the other. So it wasn't, I know Mom has often said that her whole existence was to support my dad. And Dad was kind of quiet, but he demonstrated on a daily basis his ministry to his wife and to his family by consistency, just day in and day out, not complaining, not wavering in his desire to bless his family, provide for his family. Is that right? Yeah.
Right. And so, Vonnie, go ahead. You're checking with her?
Yeah, I have to check with her just to make sure.
I love it. And so, Vonnie, can you break it down? Just the difference that it's made in communicating, with your Larry, who isn't just like, he doesn't hear you like, I'm thinking of Linus and Snoopy, right? So can you share with us, like, your perspective and what you've walked and lived out, the difference that it's made in your life and in your marriage and in rearing of your children and in watching their lives thrive? What kind of a difference has this made?
I would say that not always do we hear each other correctly. And one thing I know that we probably should do more than we do is say something like, I heard you say this. Did you say this?
True.
And if the other person says, no, that's not what I said at all, then it's like, you can say, well, that's what I heard you say. And I think we do that. We don't maybe do it that nicely to each other sometimes. But yeah, it's like we don't always hear. He doesn't always hear what I'm saying, and I don't always hear what he's saying. But it's important to check it out. Otherwise, there's that miscommunication going on. But yeah, we've had a long time to practice this.
And how many years, hold on, how many years do you guys have underneath your belt?
Answer that, honey.
I met him when I was 14, which was 1962. And we started dating when just a little before I was 16. And we got married when I was 18. So we were married in 1966. This summer is 57 years.
Wow.
That we've been married.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
That's
She
great.
she fell at my feet and said, please, can I marry you?
I'm not buying that for 2 seconds. I bet it was love at first sight, and you said that's the one I'm pursuing right there.
No, that's not how it happened at all.
Oh.
Actually, we can blame it on his mother, because his mother saw me first and said, hey, Larry, did you notice that little red-haired girl? And he said, what girl?
True. That's true.
So I told his mother when I was 15 that I was going to marry him. I didn't tell my mother that, though.
Okay. Just his mom. You were making points.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know she had said that to him. So, I was very she said, I think you need to finish school first. I didn't see any reason to finish school first.
Yeah. So share with us how, you've got, 5 decades under your belt, okay, which is significant. It's beautiful and it's honorable, okay? So if you could just share with viewers who potentially are starting out, potentially they're midway, to meet that 50-year mark, right? But if you just think of the first, 5-10 years, what do you think is most important to focus on so that they can have a lasting team?
That's a good question. Well, it's interesting because when you say I do and I promise to honor and obey, that's a promise before God. And I don't make a promise, and I know Vonnie doesn't make a promise either, lightly. It's very instrumental when you say, I promise to love and hold you for my life, for better or for worse. So I can't go back on that. Now, it's not all been rosy. There's been times where it's very stressful. Could be job-wise, it could be because of a large family, but you can't. I can't go back on a promise. Can you?
Nope.
We promised, so we're going to stick it through.
So commitment, the value of commitment.
Absolutely.
And actually, when we got married, Vietnam was huge. And he didn't have, the draft was in effect. And there was no way for him to be excused from it. And so he felt like he should enlist. Well, that was, even now trying to think back on it, it was different because you didn't know what tomorrow held. Not that we know anymore today what tomorrow holds, but then it was seemingly worse. I mean, we were a lot younger, and I guess you have these ideals of what your life should be like, is going to be like. And we had this war in the way. And so he ended up enlisting so he did not have to be drafted and he could have some choice over it. But still, there was this huge question mark. Like, we didn't know once he got stationed when we'd get to see each other again. And he was in for 4 years. So fortunately, after he got to school in Massachusetts, he was able to send for me, and we spent pretty much our first year in Massachusetts, away from family, away from everybody. So we had each other, and that was about it. So it was a good time. I have to go back and say it was a good time, even though we were like dirt poor. It was a really good time. We were expecting our first child, and so we did miss family, but knowing that we had this 4-year stint, it was a little bit different than just knowing you got married and your life was ahead of you. And so in some respects, we didn't really start until 4 years later, if that makes sense.
Sure, it does. But do you think, I've often wondered, when a couple first gets married, and this is just an opinion, I think it's actually better for the couple to be away from family so that they can create their own family. And Larry's shaking his head.
Yeah, and we create our own memories, our own traditions. We decide how we're going to do Christmas, what all that means. That's all part of learning to live together.
Yeah.
Some of it, I would have to disagree a little bit because we're both very family oriented. And my family was actually quite a bit different than his family. My mother was a career person. Both my mom and dad worked. His mother stayed home. That's the kind of lifestyle I wanted. I wanted to stay home. I wanted a big family. And so we did stuff before the 2 months before he went into the service. Like every Sunday we were with his family for Sunday dinner. We went to church with them and we had Sunday dinner. My folks went to the same church, but they were not always available. And so we did a lot of family stuff. And I would say, I don't know, I would kind of disagree with that because I think we would have been fine either way. It wouldn't have mattered. We wouldn't have had to have the time away. We were just forced to have the time away.
Yeah.
I think that's true.
And now you said you had a stack of kids. What does a stack of kids look like?
For us, it was 5, but I wanted 12.
I'm so thankful that we have 5.
Larry is one of 6. He's the oldest of 6. And so he kind of had an inkling of what a large family was like. And I was fine. I mean, I thought, actually 12 kids would have been fine. I would have been fine with 12 kids. If we could have done that, we kind of are making it up in grandkids because we got like 30 grandkids. So,
oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah. It's been a lot of fun. So, I mean, I love that. So, yeah.
It's good.
Yeah. You find ways to stay organized or else you get plowed under.
So what would you say was the importance over the years in choosing to have a team mindset instead of individual my kind of a thing?
So your question is, why is that important, or how did we accomplish that?
How did you accomplish it? How did you accomplish being a team as opposed to just 2 individuals that happen to live together?
Well, I think we have both individual pursuits and activities, as well as activities and pursuits together. So I believe it's possible to have both. And that might even be healthy to have both. So we have individual goals. I have a business, and that takes a lot of time, but we have times together too. And I really, more and more, I relish those times together, just to sit together. And I just sit there and listen to my wife talk. It's wonderful.
This has not been the way it's been always, though. Like, if you go back, this is more like what's happened the last 10 plus years, because he's had his own business, but he really hasn't, it hasn't been full time until probably 15, 16 years ago. Before that, he worked and have a basic home setup. I didn't work outside of the home. I stayed home. But partly what I can see is that we both got different strengths. And so, I mean, I figure if that's his strength, I don't need to do his strength. He can do his strength. And he doesn't need to do my strength. I can do. And they're not the same. So this together, once you get it figured out, it's like, okay, let's do it this way. And he always came home. I mean, he wasn't one of these guys who weren't even really big into sports. I mean, once the kids grew up and started liking different teams and stuff, then the TV would come on with sports stuff. But we just did a lot of stuff with our kids. Really.
And that's what you put such a love for parenting in them, and that's why you have 30 grandkids.
Yeah, that's partly right.
Because you sowed into your children a love for parenting, so they turned around and wanted to be parents. That speaks volumes of you guys. It really does. They wanted to be. So Steve and I both, we came from 5. Mm-hmm. We were both. He's number 4 of 5, and I'm number 3 or 6. He came from 5. I came from 6. So he's number 4 of 5, and I'm number 3 of 6. So basically, we're both practically the middle child.
Yeah.
So he's number 1 of 6, and I'm number 2 of 3. But my sister's 6 years older. My brother was 5 years younger. So it's almost like we were only children.
Oh yeah, definitely. So aside from communication, what about?
Well, sticking on communication. Sorry, my voice is losing my voice. How do you navigate so men's version of communication and women's version of communication can be 2 different worlds. So how do you navigate the difference in, because as men, we could think we communicated perfectly fine, but women like to take it to the next level of communication. So how do you navigate the communication in that aspect?
It was hard at first. I don't think it was that easy when we were first married. So I think, again, listening helps develop communication. For me, it's listening to develop communication. That's all I can say. Maybe that's too simplistic, but
well, not necessarily, Larry. Let's think of sports for a second. Okay, let's think of sports. The very first time you turn on the TV and watch a first ball game, you're only going to know so much about the players. But it is through repetitious listening, and this is all coming to me right now on the spot. It is through repetitious listening that one becomes aware of the players on the field, the different aspects and details of each individual on the field. But that is not just one and done. It is through repetitious listening and observing that you become knowledgeable.
And I do believe that Vonnie is much more gifted in communication than I am. I tend to be short, just make a statement short. It's good enough for me. I don't need a lot of detail. I don't express a lot of detail. Where Vonnie is very gifted at expressing communication and expressing detail. I can do it in one sentence.
Okay, so we have a grandson. One of our grandsons likes to compartmentalize people. He has two groups: noisy people and quiet people. And so when he started doing this about 5 years ago, Grandpa is quiet and Grandma is noisy. And it's not one is better than the other or worse than the other. It just is. So I said, "Oh, well, that's good, right?" And he says, "Oh yeah, that's good." So grandson tends to be quiet, and he really identifies more with Grandpa. And his brother identifies with me because his brother is noisy. So, but not only are women and myself usually more chatty, I am noisy. I'm loud. And Larry is not. He's quiet. So I'm sure a good example, okay, he used to come home from work and the kids would meet him at the door and tackle him and dad's home, all that good stuff. And he'd, hug them and yeah, good. And then he'd make a beeline for our bedroom and our bathroom. And he would shut himself in the bathroom and be there for half an hour. And I'm going, so where are you?
Not that bad.
Yeah, no, it was like that. And it took me a while to understand that he needed that time to recharge. He had
Larry, I'm on your side.
His job, he was a dispensing optician, and he was running the Oregon City Eye Clinic at that point in time, and he was with people all day long using all of his words. And so he would come home and not have that many words left to use, plus the fact he needed to go in and just shut himself away and be quiet. And I didn't get that for a while, a long time, until I probably read one of Gary Smalley's books. So, I didn't begrudge him that. I just didn't understand it for a long time. But then he would come out and it was fine. I mean, we always had dinner together as a family every night. There was no TV. There was no cell phones. We were always together for dinner. And on the weekends, we were together for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So that's just how we raised our kids. Of course, we could too. They're all, our oldest is 55 now. So yeah.
I could relate. I need that downtime after work.
Yeah.
Just reset.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah.
I understand completely.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's like the difference in our personalities. Now, he loves people. He loves being around people, but it takes energy from him. When I'm around people, I get energy. And so if we go places, I want to go early and be the last one to leave. And he's just gotten to the point where he puts up with that. It's okay, but he does need time down after that. Like church, we'd go to church. Well, I want to sit on the front row.
Oh, Lord.
Because I don't like anything between me and what's happening. I mean, it's just like, that's distraction. And I'm short enough, if I'm sitting 1 or 2 rows back, I can't see. I need a booster, And he never liked that. He would have been happy in the back row. And I remember telling him one time, I said, okay, you sit back there. I'm sitting up here, though, because I can't deal with back there. So he eventually started joining me in the front. Not that we ever sat apart, but we'd have the kids with us when the kids had to be in church with us, and that's what you did.
I simply like to watch what's going on, and you can't watch what's going on if you're in the front row.
No, but I like to. I don't know. I realized that a lot of what I was doing was praying for what was happening on the platform, and if there's something in between me and that, I can't I mean, I'm not as effective.
Yeah. So that's called the heart of an intercessor.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, we've been on worship teams off and on forever. So, I mean, he plays, we both sing, and that's how it's been.
So that's I would put that as in a marriage, you have to work on compromise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to give a little, sometimes you have to give a lot. And because, this right here, this isn't my comfort zone.
Yeah.
But you know whose it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So this
Yeah.
is new to me, not my comfort zone. This is her Valentine's present right here.
Yay! Way to go, Steve.
You know, I so identify, Steve, with you.
Yeah. Larry's not totally unused to this because we have a Zoom call every Sunday morning with a small group of people. So if this would have been like his first time on a Zoom call, he probably would have been, no. But he is somewhat used to it. So.
Yeah, I'm not good. I don't do social media. I don't get cameras. I'm not a very good, speaker. So,
But one thing I can say is, so like with Steve and I, we both have the gift of hospitality, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we've held many gatherings in our home, and even though behind the scene there may be work, when everybody is present, that is when I've seen my husband come most to life. So that is a gift that we both have, right? So like you guys said, you've done different worship and different things like that together. So yes, the importance of having your own individual, right? But to also have that common bond as well, because especially after kids. So tell viewers that transition when you've got 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yes, I will let go of that last kid. Yes, I will let that last kid move out. Right? And then there was just Larry and Vonnie. Share a little bit about that.
Well, fortunately, they didn't all move out at the same time.
And there's like 11 years between the oldest and the youngest.
Okay.
So I that wouldn't have been good for me to have them all leave at once because I love my kids. I homeschooled. I did all that stuff. So, yeah. But I told them they would never have to leave if they didn't want to. You're welcome to stay until you're 30, 35. None of them did.
We love to see the kids come. I love little kids. I love little babies. I love to watch how they grow and learn. But it was good for them to leave too because they need to have their own lives.
That's right.
So it would not have been healthy for kids to stay like mommy wanted. They needed to be on their own.
Of course, that was really a joke. I knew none of them would stay that long.
Yeah.
In fact, who stayed the longest? I don't even remember now. I think maybe Brian, because he was older.
Maybe.
I mean, he left, but he came back because he went into the ministry. So that, anyway, yeah, it's been crazy a little bit. So when they left, I don't know. We ended up with a lot of grandkids during that time. So, and one family, we had grandkids. We had those kids, and there was 6 of them. We had them over a lot, like 3 times a week or so. And so I don't really remember.
That's probably a good point, that we didn't have any kind of a stressful empty nest because there was always grandkids and activities and birthdays There's
No,
always a birthday.
birthdays. Yeah. So, I mean, I used to tell people I would be happy doing a party every week. That would be fun.
Absolutely.
I'm a party-
Absolutely. Now,
party
is
girl.
your family spread out, or do they live relatively close?
Now they are spread out. We have one in New York, we have one in Arkansas, one in Eugene, which isn't very far, but it's too far to just pop over and go see.
Yeah.
And our daughter lives in Happy Valley, so that's close, and our son lives in Lake Oswego, and that's close.
Okay.
So really, out of the 5, there's only 2 that are close now. But that's only been since 3 years.
Okay. Where
So we lost them 3 years ago.
Mm.
Yeah. So, and that was not very nice. I told them they didn't ask us
Oh.
if they could. That's far away. No, that wasn't my idea. Nope. No, because we enjoy gathering everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you, it's fun to have family over.
I mean, our oldest grandchild is going to turn 30 this year, and I'm going, what? How did that happen? So, and we still, the older grandkids, we try and have over once a month. Otherwise, we don't get to see them. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like,
go ahead.
It's like you have to fight. I learned a long time ago, there's certain things that you have to fight for. I mean, if you want things to turn out, if you want to make sure you've got relationships, if you want to make sure you have gatherings, you've got to plan it and you've got to fight for it, because with that many people, it takes a lot of planning. Like, okay, we're going to do this now. Is everybody going to be able to come? Do you have to work? What's the schedules? All of that kind of stuff. And anymore, it's almost impossible to get everybody together at the same time.
Well,
But
younger people are less social than and
Yeah.
less traditional
Yes.
nowadays. Traditions almost go into the wayside.
That's
But
true.
I really like what you said, Vonnie, that you have to fight for it, right? And so if I think of and one thing I'd have to say that I'm so proud of is watching my children initiate gatherings. Okay, because it used to be they were only at our house, and so Steve and I would get up at 4:00 in the morning on Thanksgiving, right? In order to, successfully walk out of Thanksgiving Day, and you would sit down for 15 minutes to eat your meal, and then you were back up again, right? That's with the dishwasher, right?
Yeah.
And then, of course, if you're a woman who liked using pretty dishes, those dishes had to be hand washed.
Yeah.
Right? But you have to fight for certain things that are important, right? And so, because it really is worth it. And then, so share how you've seen what you two fought for lived out in your children.
I can see it really in one family of grandchildren, the most. They're the oldest grandchildren, and I see them saying, we really loved it when we did this with you. We remember these times, and we had so much fun. And really only one of them in that family is married yet so far, and she does do stuff at her house too. She doesn't necessarily pull tons of people together because I don't think they have the room for that. But I see that a lot in that family. They appreciate gathering. They love coming over here to see us. Still, it's not as much as I would like.
Yeah.
Once a month, I mean, I would be happy every day if I got to see people. That would be the best. But that's a little like not
very practical.
Not very practical. No.
Yeah. So Larry, share how the different attributes that you were purposeful in developing in your marriage, how that in turn you saw lived out in your, what's your ratio of sons and daughters? Sons and daughters.
What?
Ratio. 3 boys on the top. Yeah, we have 3 boys on the top, and we adopted a girl, and then we had a girl.
Okay, so like with you, say for instance, with your sons, right? So as you purposed in your heart to walk out certain attributes as a man, as a dad, as a husband, and then to watch your sons turn around and because all of our kids have different personalities, right? They have different giftings, different strengths, different weaknesses, right? And so we're going to see like just different one of our attributes in our children, but share with us like share with us an example or a moment in life where you saw one of your sons do something and you're like, oh my gosh, it was worth it.
Probably number two son. He is very children oriented, kids oriented.
Always.
Always has been. Loves, even if at a small age, at a young age, he loved little kids. And he's just an exceptionally loving father to little ones. He's like a supporter and a enhancer of little ones. So he's got this heart, and that's my heart as well. I love watching and caring for and nurturing little ones. That's where my heart is. And so I see that especially in number two son.
Uh-huh.
Not so much in number one son, although he loves his kids as well.
There's different
But-
personality.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's the two boys, the two top boys. Our third son is the pastor, and he is very much family and children oriented. That's their number one goal. And so that's something that I think somehow, I guess, just through observing, I taught that to them by example. Daughters, let's see. Well, it's the same with the daughters as well. They, it's probably most important to all of our kids to nurture and love and care for their children.
Yeah.
And I think I hope that's from me. I hope that's what I carried, that they observed and learned from.
So if you were the eldest, and say for instance, like your eldest son, did he adopt the work ethic? You know what I mean? Like the
Yes.
trying to be a business, leader.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And
I know that I remember, looking at our children growing up over the years, our desire was that none of our children worked until they graduated, but some of them were motivated by money. I had 2 motivated by money and 3 that were like, take it or leave it. And the 2 that were motivated by money, they wanted to work. They wanted that extra money, and that was their drive, that, and so I just think it's, I even remember the funniest thing was, I'll never forget the day my eldest son said to me, Mom, I don't think like you. And I was like, oh, what? What? It was like, I almost didn't know what to do because you were the one that instructed them. And this is when they were still all living at home, right? So younger, I think he was 16 when he said that to me, and I almost didn't know what to do. It was just such a concept to me.
I love that.
Well, as children, we worked to buy our school clothes.
Yeah.
Mom and Dad, Dad did it. He made good money, but he certainly didn't have enough money to buy 6 kids' shoes at the same time. And so we were taught. Actually, it wasn't necessarily that we were taught. We just observed and took on this responsibility of earning money and taking care of our own needs. So I think that's probably passed down to our children as well, because they did the same thing.
Right.
They all mowed lawns and
Yeah.
just
Babysitting. There's a lot of
Sure.
stuff. Even the boys took on babysitting. We were a 1-income family, and our kids for several years were in private Christian school before I started homeschooling, and there was not extra money. So if they wanted to go to camp, if they wanted to do anything, if they wanted extra things, then they figured out ways to earn money to do that. So, but one thing I remember when you were talking about the question you asked, I remember when our oldest son went into the service, and I believe, I think it was shortly after he was done with boot camp, he wrote us this letter, and it was like, oh my gosh, Mom and Dad, you're really good people. That's kind of paraphrased, but he said, I didn't realize how many sad people are in the world until I got around all of these men. Excuse me. And I still have the letter. It's like I wanted to frame it and put it on the wall.
Oh.
So we made the kids work, and we made Patrick work.
We didn't make them.
Well, he had to
We
because
encouraged them.
he had to pay rent after he graduated from high school. And he thought, oh, that was such an injustice.
Yeah.
I have to pay rent. Yeah, you had to pay $50 a month for room and board. And
Yeah, well, he had a job. I said, it's great. If you want to go on to school, then we're not going to charge you. But if you're working, you can afford to help. And I remember one day he came up and he says, well, my buddy and I are going to get an apartment and I'm going to move out. I said, that's great. But I said, I don't think you'll find that for $50 a month, which would have been in about, what year would that be?
oh gosh,
67, 70s, probably about 1985.
Okay.
Yeah. There wouldn't have been any place for $50 or even $100 a month. No.
room and board,
Yeah, no.
rent
So
and food.
so he went into the service.
Yeah. That's great. I love it. And so for anybody who has teenage parents, okay, we're I am the age that they've been married, okay, that Vonnie and Larry have been married, okay, or no, I'm 54. Steve's 59.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we had a similar agreement with our children, and it was if you lived at home and you were going to school full time, we will pay for your phone and there will be no rent. If you're going to college full time, but if you're not going to college full time, then rent will be $50 a week. And this was this is 2010ish and on. And we thought that was a pretty good deal, right? And I had them sign rental agreements, and they had to pay their rent by 5 o'clock on Friday because I was trying to teach them realities of life.
Yeah.
But before then, and probably too because Steve and I both grew up very poor, so poor. Steve and I were so poor, and because we were so poor, that's why we didn't want our children to work. So we chose to work so that they didn't, because we didn't get the liberty of, oh, let's be in sports. No, you couldn't be in sports because, he had to work. So we wanted our kids to be able to have the fullness of, what we didn't have, right? But it's just so funny, just that, and it's not mean, if you have to work or if you don't have to work. It's, if you lived on a farm, the cow needs to be milked.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, our kids all learned how. I don't know if you've ever heard of a book. There's this book these sisters wrote called Sidetracked Home Executives.
No.
When I got
Sidetracked?
Sidetracked Home Executives.
Okay.
And I used to, I've always been fairly organized, but I'm not that great of a housekeeper. Okay. I mean, it's like if I could have figured out, once I read that book, I thought, this is great, because they had you make card files, and you just did jobs according to, like, if you wanted something done 3 times a week, the vacuuming done 3 times a week, then you put it on a card and it goes out 3 times a week. There's things that maybe need to be done once a week. And when I did that and had the kids start really, they've always helped. I always had them help with stuff because I wanted them to know how to do stuff. I didn't want to have kids that didn't know how to vacuum or didn't know how to wash the car or whatever. I wanted kids that knew how to do stuff. And so, and you've got that many kids, you can get by if you've got only 2 kids, maybe 3. You can get by with mom and dad doing everything. But if you've got more kids, it's not going to happen. You got to have help. And so once I did that, man, everything was done like clockwork. It was great. And then when they started moving away and the last one moved away, I said, this is really rude. I have to do all this stuff over again now. I mean, now it's me. I got to do all this stuff. That's like not fair. Hello. My car never gets vacuumed out anymore. It used to get vacuumed out once a week. So, but they learned how to do all that stuff. And I remember a time where the kids, the 2 oldest boys, were going to a junior high camp from church. And it was just a weekend camp. And when they got back that Sunday evening, one of the counselors came to us and said, hey, we really appreciate your boys. They know how to do stuff. He said, even simple stuff, like it's time to fix the meal. Nobody knew what to do. Nobody knew that they were supposed to clear the table or how to wash the dishes when you're out camping or any of that stuff. But he said, your boys knew what to do. And so I thought, well, I didn't ever think that was, I never thought about it. It's just how we did it.
Yeah. So would you say, because I always attributed it to, I didn't look at it as chores for the sake of chores or allowance for the sake of if you do this, but I looked at it as we were teaching our children a work ethic.
That's
Yes.
Right? Just a
Absolutely.
work ethic.
Which our kids all have a very good work ethic.
Yeah, ours too.
They're not lazy whatsoever.
Yeah, that's good, Steve.
I'm not even sure that for a long time they didn't even get allowance because we didn't have money to give them allowance.
We just said, you got a place to live and eat, so just do the work.
That's right. And we didn't look at it as allowance as much as, okay, here's some spending money, because regardless, you had to do the chores. And if it's, one kid could clean the bathroom and it took him a half an hour. Another kid somehow took an hour and a half. But the end result still had to be to a certain standard because I was teaching them a work ethic.
Oh yeah.
And so Larry, what would you, if somebody needed to push a restart button or a do-over button, because you said his mercies are new every day, right? Okay. So if somebody was to say, oh snap, I didn't do this particular thing so good, it's never too late to restart. If somebody needed to do a restart, even if they were in their 60s or 70s, what would you share with that person today?
I'd say be very careful with your words. Always affirm. And if there's discipline, make sure that it's done in love. And sometimes anger got in there and the discipline wasn't in love. It was more, I'm not talking physical.
Yeah.
Never physical. But sometimes harsh words are actually worse than physical. And so I would say, please, Mr. Friend, just be really, really careful with your words. And if you're in anger, then don't say anything because it's not going to come out good. I know.
And Vonnie, thank you. That's really good. And Vonnie, what would you say? Larry addressed fatherhood. Okay. What would you say to wives or women? What would your, if I could just pass this on to women.
I would say, and I really tried to do this, even though there was a lot of things that had to be done to keep a home running smoothly. I would say make sure you take time with your kids, especially when they're small. They seem to be, sometimes they're in the way, and I could do this job better if you would just go and play, do something, get out of my way. When they're like 1, 2, and 3, and they really can't do anything very well. yet. You got to take the time to let them do stuff anyway and spend that time with them and nurture them. I remember our youngest when she was 6, and of course, I used to rock all the kids at night to sleep almost before they went to bed. And so when it was her turn, she got the longest because she was the youngest. And she asked me when she was 5 or 6 one time, and I was still rocking her every night, will you still do this when I'm 16? And I said, well, yeah, if you fit on my lap and you want me to rock you, I'll still rock you when you're 16. Of course, that didn't happen, but she didn't know it wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
So just the thought of spending that time with them and making sure that you just want to make sure they feel like they're so important.
Yeah.
You know, another thing that I think is really important, and I probably didn't do this enough, and that is to affirm your wife in front of your children. Make sure that your children know that their mother is loved and appreciated, and make that verbal in front of children, in front of your kids. So they learn to respect their mother just as the father respects their mother.
Somehow the kids, and I'm not sure how they learned this, but when it was one of the kids' birthdays, he would always take them up to the store and he would have them buy a carnation or a rose and bring it to me on their birthday, which I thought was really sweet. But now, as far as Larry's not real demonstrative, and that's fine, it's okay. So, and I don't particularly like cut flowers because they're so expensive, and I just bring me a balloon, you know? I mean, it's like, I don't care. But every one of our boys, and I'm not sure how it translated, but like when they started dating and started being around girls, they were so demonstrative, especially like stuff with flowers and stuff. I'm going, where did you guys get that from? Because I don't know how you learned that, but they picked up on some stuff along the way because they were always, and our oldest said the other day, you know, it was clear to me that he was affirming us, even at the age 55. I enjoyed my childhood. I enjoyed my life with you before I left home. And that's when they can come back and say that to you when they're 55. That's
right.
pretty cool.
That's right.
But the whole deal with the rose is on their birthday to honor their mother for giving them birth.
Right.
That's right.
That's the whole theory behind
And
it.
I got that. And so that's where your children, your sons learned it. They learned it by that simple act of that carnation. And back in the day, carnations used to smell amazing. Now they don't. What are you doing? Now they don't smell as amazing, you know, but back then they did. And that's huge. And you know, one thing I like that you shared are, you know, love languages, right? So you guys are our third couple we interviewed today. But love languages are so important, and understanding the other person's love language is so important because we don't all think and perceive the same, right? So, you know, some of us would say, yes, surprise me with flowers, and other of us would say, just give me the money so I could go get what I want. Because the flowers are going to die.
That's right.
I
And they're so
know.
expensive. Yeah.
So Steve, keep giving flowers.
Cash, please, cash. So we just want to thank you. We just want to thank you guys for this opportunity to just share with other people, you know, how to continue to have thriving love in a marriage. You know, obviously, you know, nobody said anybody had to be perfect, but obviously you put that love inside of your children for parenting, you know, because you don't have 30 grandkids unless there was a love in the family. And so I thank you. I thank you that your children are, you know, your children and their children, right, are also bestowing the love of family on others, you know. And so I would just say, well done, well done, well done, well done. And
There's a practical aspect, I don't want to try to train another one. So I'm going to keep this one.
That's right. That's right. Because you would have to start all over again.
Oh,
Right.
perish the thought.
Yeah.
That would be me training, not
No.
you.
You guys are too funny. Well, just thank you. Thank you. I thank you for your time, and I know this is just going to be an encouragement to people to be able to hear your story. And I want to say to all of our viewers, thank you for coming to this episode of Sagionic 1027. And until our next episode, may the Lord bless you. May the Lord keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon thee always. Blessings. Bye.
And give you your
Thank you,
shalom.
guys. It's been fun. Bye.
Blessings.